Good afternoon, at least. Okay, you've maybe caught by surprise having a free lesson on the last day on a Tuesday, which is a bonus. But today is a very special day. I'm very privileged to introduce to you a young man who's done some magic things in his life. I'm just going to give you a short background and then I'll introduce you. For those of you, well, most of you haven't been on a sailboat. I can just tell you it's a harrowing experience to be out at sea at night in huge waves and huge wind. If there are people around you that can assist you when things get difficult. Now this man does it single-handedly. He's sailing single-handedly around the world. And if I say single-handedly, I mean single-handedly. He's only got one hand. And then on top of that, he's only got one leg too. So he's trying to come out. He's attempting to be the first person to single-handedly sail around the world with one arm and one leg being amputated because of an accident. But he'll tell you more about that now. What I'm trying to say to you is respect the fact that this young man is doing something extremely out of the ordinary. And I asked him to come and share his experience with us so that we can plant a little seed in our minds to start the process to think that if a person can do that without two body parts missing, then surely all of you got all your parts. All you have to do is put your mind to it, focus on it, work on it, and you can go a very, very long way in life. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to introduce Dustin Reynolds.
Thank you, Kirsten. This is my first time doing something like this, so forgive me if I'm a bit nervous. My name is Dustin Reynolds, and Kirsten asked me to come speak to you today because just about talking about overcoming adversity. 10 years ago, just over, I was hit by a drunk driver. I lost my arm and my... Hello? Oh, there it is. And nearly my life. The person hit me, he was drunk in a big truck. My arm flew about 15 meters from the scene of the accident, and he left me for dead on the side of the road. I don't know how long I lay there, but when I came to, I felt like I woke up from a deep sleep. I didn't realize that I had been in an accident. I remembered seeing him come at me, but then I didn't remember the collision. And in my mind, I avoided it. But when I woke up, I reached over and I grabbed what was left here, which was a cold and bloody stump. I screamed for help a few times, and there was nobody there. And I reached in my pocket and I grabbed my cell phone. I dialed 911, which is what you do in the United States. I've heard Trevor Noah talk about the 10-111 here, which is a different thing. I called 911 and I told them where I was and my condition and whatnot. And I remember this moment, when I got the cell phone out of my pocket, I had a pause before I hit send on the phone. I realized my condition. I was once a search and rescue diver for the Coast Guard, so I used to jump out of helicopters and try to save people. And then I was a volunteer firefighter after that. And I was aware of my condition. I was aware that my arm was gone. I was aware that I lost a lot of blood. And I was aware that I couldn't stand. And I thought about it. I thought about what's in store for me. All this went through my head, and it might have been just a moment, or 30 seconds, or 1 second, or 10 seconds. But in that time, I was deciding whether or not to live. I wanted to hit send on my cell phone, but then I was not sure. I didn't know if I wanted to be crippled. I didn't know if I wanted to go through life looking the way that I do now. I obviously hit send since I'm here talking to you now. So after this, I had a short ambulance ride to the hospital. they called my parents and my grandparents and told them my condition. And they basically told me that I was going to die. I had a bunch of friends in the hospital. They said I had no blood pressure, none of the scans showed anything, and they basically said that I had a choice. I could stay up with my friends until I passed away, or I could go into surgery. And they said the chances of the anesthesia killing me were nearly 100%. They knew that I had aspirated, which is vomiting in your lungs, and they knew I had internal bleeding. But other than that, the scans couldn't show anything because I had so much internal bleeding. So I told them at this time, when they were asking me this question, I said, no, I made this decision on the side of the road a little while ago. I'm going to live. And so they were getting ready to put me in for surgery. By that time, my girlfriend was there in the hospital. And I told her, like, right before they anesthetized me and put me under, I said, I'm sorry, it looks like you're not getting any tonight. So, the funny thing is had I died, those would have been my last words. So I woke up 2 days later in another hospital on another island. I'm from the big island of Hawaii, and they had flown me to Oahu, where the trauma center was. And so ironically, they asked me if I knew where I was, and of course there was no way I could have known. They flew me up while I was under. So in the hospital, one of the first things that happened is, they put me on the phone with my father, and he spoke of love and courage and all these things, and I could hear his voice just getting more and more shaky on the phone, and I could hear that he was crying. And he put this cue card in front of me, which would be great for drunk people because it had where you could point, I need to go to the bathroom, I'm hungry, or whatever, and then also had letters to point out. And it took me a while to actually type something out back to my dad, but after his 20-minute heartfelt speech, I told him, hey, don't worry, Pop, it's just a scratch. So I spent 10 days in the hospital, and then they moved me to the rehabilitation center. In the rehabilitation center, they put me in the spinal floor. And being with spinal patients is a completely humbling thing. I had no chance to feel sorry for myself. I was by far in better shape than anybody on the floor. Most people couldn't control their bowels or couldn't speak, or it was something where I felt lucky. Like after just recently losing my arm and leg, I felt lucky. And my girlfriend was there, my friends were there, and I continued on. And once I got out of the hospital was when the real struggle began. Because I was hit by a drunk driver and the accident wasn't my fault, my insurance couldn't pay. So it left me about $500,000 US in debt. And so I was denied medical care when I got out. And I was on blood thinners, which requires blood draw every couple times a week just to make sure, they call it your INRs, but they make sure that your blood thinness doesn't make you bleed internally and die. And they were denying me this unless I paid cash in advance. And then trying to go through rehab was also difficult. And luckily, I have the most amazing friends and family, so everybody was there helping me out through all this. It took about 3 years of recovery before I ended up getting reconstructive surgery done on my leg, which is why I'm standing so well now. And once I started recovering, I started going back to work. I owned a carpet cleaning business and a commercial fishing boat, which both at that time had been 3 years out of maintenance, so both of them were nearly failing. And so I tried going back to work, and I decided that I can't do this anymore. I can't work to get back to where I was. I filed bankruptcy to get rid of this $500,000 medical lien, and I was debt-free. And I had these 2 businesses that were failing, but I sold them, and I did what anyone would do in my situation. I decided to sail around the world by myself. I was randomly looking at the internet one day, and I saw this website website called theslopingsociety.com. And it was a bunch of people who had set records sailing around the world by themselves. And I just noticed there was no double amputee on there. I'd never sailed before, and so I had no idea if I could even sail with one arm and one leg. And so I bought a sailboat and decided to find out. I had one quick trip with the previous owner of the boat, and then spent about a year working on it. And so I was telling my friends and family that I knew how to sail because I didn't want them to worry about me. And in the meantime, I was watching YouTube videos and reading books on how to sail. So my roommate at the time decided he was going to do a 1-month trip with me around Hawaii and basically see if I could sail and see if I could actually do this. And just before the trip, he pulls up the YouTube on the TV and sees all these things, like how to put up the mainsail, how to reef the sail, how to do this, how to do that. And he looks at me and he's like, "You don't know how to sail, do you?" I'm like, "Well, I do now. I watch the videos." So 5 years after this happened to me, I had gone bankrupt, I had had a reconstructive surgery, I had sold my 2 businesses, I bought a $12,000 sailboat, and I was ready to depart Hawaii and see if I really could sail by myself. And when I left Kona, it was about a 1,000-mile trip to Palmyra, which was actually the first time I had ever sailed a boat by myself. I left Kona by myself in the middle of the night, and I had a teary goodbye with all my friends that came and helped me load up the boat, and we're getting ready to go. And of course, you know, when you're saying goodbye to people, sometimes it's better to just like give a quick hug and say goodbye, you know. And so they all left, and I still had to untie the boat and push it off and do all these things by myself. I was like, it would have been nice to someone kick the boat off. And I had nearly missed a charter boat, so as I swooping the boat around, like I missed them by not much. And I got out to sea, and I'd been up for like 30 hours, and I just slept. You know, there was no wind, so I put the sails down, and I slept for a little while. And then I got up and went, and I hugged the coast of Hawaii, so I still had cell phone coverage. And at this time, I only had $20 US in my bank account. Like, I was completely broke. I didn't know exactly how I was going to earn money, where I was going to go. My boat was completely loaded with food, so I wouldn't starve, and I know how to fish. But I really had no idea how I was going to make it. And I really didn't know how to sail that well. So I didn't even use the mainsail for the first like 3 countries I visited, because I was afraid of it and I didn't know how to use it. It wasn't until I got to Fiji that somebody actually came aboard my boat and taught me to sail. Like, my transmission went out on the boat, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I can't get in and out of harbors, I can't do this, I can't do that. And a friend of mine, who I met in Tonga, says, "Hey, don't worry, just sail everywhere." I was like, "Well, how do you do this and that and that?" Well, he came on my boat and taught me how to sail. And it was probably all the skills that I should have known before I left Hawaii. So one of my trips across, I was sailing from Tonga to Fiji, and I got into some bad weather, and I have this monitor wind vane, which is a self-steering device. It's a mechanical autopilot. And there was rough weather, and it got hit by a big wave, and it broke the monitor wind vane. The boat rounded up and knocked down, which means the sails were in the water, the boat's laying on its side, waves were coming in. I was down below and getting soaked in my bunk. So my first solution to solve this problem was cussing really loudly. When that didn't work, I got up and I released the sheets of the mainsail, and the boat popped back up, and then came the matter of fixing the wind vane. Luckily, I had some fiberglass equipment on board. I was able to use, a sea clamp and everything, and get the fiberglass equipment back, get the wind vane back together. Hang on, I'm going to look at my notes for a second. This picture is actually in Palmyra. It's one of my favorite stops. That's Rain the booby. It's a booby bird that was actually born in Palmyra, that he'll actually come jump on your shoulders and everything. It's there as well. So, between Fiji and Thailand, I luckily had learned to sail because the transmission on my boat had failed again. And I had to sail on and off the Banker through 3 countries. One of them being the Solomon Islands, which is well known for piracy. I was boarded twice while I was there. And the first night, I was in this place called Maroba Lagoon. And the people came on board, and they were trying to steal stuff off the boat. And I was able to scare them off. I put a spotlight on them. I yelled that I have a gun. I don't have a gun. But they believe me since I'm an American, and all Americans have guns, right? So they left. Well, the next night, and again, I didn't have an engine, so I had to try to sail out of here. I had to stay up all night, hoping that they didn't board me again, and then try to sail out. And then after a couple of nights of staying awake, I had gotten sick, and then I got boarded again. Same situation, they came aboard, I said I have a gun, and they jumped off and believed me. But then I had to check out the Solomon Islands and sail off while sick. And I had gone to the hospital to say, hey, I think I have a blood infection, I have a high fever, and whatnot, and there's a chance of a blood pressure drop with that. So, so I decided that I should go to the hospital and get my blood pressure checked. Well, they wanted, $100 US to do this, and which I didn't have. And so I was like pleading with them. I was like, look, this takes like 5 minutes. It shouldn't cost $100. I have like $20 I can give you. And I'm like, sorry. So I was like, fine, I left. And one of the nurses ran from behind the building and came and checked my blood pressure for me. And so I was fine. And so I sailed off on my own, sick. And once I got out of the harbor of Gizo, I passed out. I slept for like maybe 10 hours at sea. And then woke up and I started feeling better. I was just taking antibiotics to kind of get out of this. Anyway, after all this, I'm meeting other sailors and learning to sail, becoming part of this community that is very small. Like at any given time, there's only about 3,000 people sailing around the world. And most of them are in the Mediterranean and the Caribbean. There's maybe 300 or 400 that are crossing oceans. And I had become part of this community. So it became like everywhere that I stopped, there'd be people that I knew. Like I'd come in and I'd see friends. And it became like this community, like a small town that's sailing around the world together, which was amazing. Like suddenly, everything just kind of worked out. Things started to get better. I was like getting more confident in sailing. And I had sailed through Indonesia and Thailand. And Thailand is where my dad lives. And when I left Hawaii, I decided that Thailand was going to be my point where I decided whether or not I actually want to do this. Because remember, I left Hawaii, I didn't know how to sail. And so once I was in Thailand, I was like, okay, well, now's the time to decide. But when I got there, my boat was in such a wreck, it was sinking. It was, I'd been through a few storms, and it just wasn't in great shape. Just outside of Indonesia, I had one bad thunderstorm where lightning was striking and the autopilot went out, and and the boat was in bad shape. And so I get to Thailand and the boat's sinking, and I hauled it out. Again, a common thing in my life, I had no money. So I had the boat lifted out without even money to pay for it. And my girlfriend at the time convinced me to start a GoFundMe account. Which I don't know, have you guys heard of that? So I did a GoFundMe, and since then, 299 people have contributed to $21,500 to my GoFundMe. And so I sold my sinking boat and bought the boat that I'm on now, which is much nicer. And this trip across the Indian Ocean has just been incredible. Like I got to stop in the Andaman Islands, Chagos, Sri Lanka, Madagascar, Mozambique, and here. All of them amazing countries. And some of the most welcoming people you'll ever meet. And it's funny, like in the last 5 years, I've been in predominantly Muslim countries and with people of color. And there are bits of, I wouldn't say racism, but just racial tension in some of them, and Solomon Islands especially. Solomon Islands actually had what they called ethnic tension, where they burned down all the hotels. And despite this, me being white and on a sailboat, which is perceived as being a rich person, after the moments of apprehension, the people were always welcoming and amazing and inviting me to the village and feeding me. And then I'd have them on the boat and I'd feed them as well. And even in Madagascar, where there's a really big problem with trafficking, human trafficking. You know, people come to these islands and they take the young people away. And they do this on boats. And so when you come to a boat to these countries, they're obviously questioning of what your intentions are. And usually, the humanity always comes through. Like, people were just always genuinely nice and just accepting them and letting me in. So here I am now, like talking to you guys. I'll pause for a minute. Does anyone have any questions? You could seriously ask me anything. Go ahead. Okay, so he asked the time that my boat flipped and water was coming in and was going through my head. I did mention this, lots of swear words. I was scared. I didn't know. Something like that has never happened to me before. I had read in a book that what I should do is release the sheets of the sails. Because the sailboat has a big keel on it. And so the leg keel is able to right the boat. And it was actually the sails that were holding the boat in the water. And so after a minute of panic, I was able to actually think and make it right. Somebody else? Okay, so he asked, through this journey, what's the main thing going through my mind? Early on, I had no idea what to expect. When I first left Hawaii, I hit a squall, which is like a small storm, and just got blasted with maybe 30, 40 knots of wind, which is 50, 60 k's. And all of a sudden I'm in it. The boat, waves are coming over the boat, this and that. And in my head, I'm like, oh, what am I doing? This sucks. It's like 8 sailing. And even the first time that I sailed, so when I first bought the boat, the guy who was holding the boat had just finished a 7-year circumnavigation. And his name was Jonas Collins. And so I bought the boat, and we left Oahu, and we hit a squall in the Coyote Channel, which is a really rough bit of water. And it's pouring down rain, there's shipping traffic, and I'm like, again, what the heck am I doing out here? And he's like, I got this. You crash after a little bit, I'll take this watch and you go up to the next one. So he wakes me up a couple hours later, and the stars are out, and there's bioluminescence in the water. So, do you guys know what that is? So bioluminescence is like this little glowing plankton. So when the boat travels through the water, anything travels through the water, it disturbs them and they light up. So it's almost like these stars in the water. And so you see the sky and the stars in the water, the boat's sailing through nicely. And dolphins come through. And the dolphins disturb it as well. So they look like these little glowing torpedoes flying by. And even when they come up and breathe, they shoot little bursts of light, which is, and I was like, okay, yeah, I can do this now. Anybody? Okay, so he asked, when the accident happened, how did my parents motivate me and keep me calm for all this? To be perfectly honest, I was trying to keep my parents calm through all this. Luckily, it was quite a while before it actually hit me, what had actually happened to me. When I was in the hospital, I had enough people there that were, I was trying to keep them calm and let them know that I'm okay and whatnot. And then it wasn't until I got home in Hawaii that I was finally alone for the first time. And I had one of those big sliding mirror doors on my closet. And I got out of bed and I sat there and I looked at myself. And it was the first time that I really saw myself missing an arm and a leg. And it was a bit like computer-generated graphics. You know, it didn't look like me. I had lost about 15 kilos. You know, most of it muscle mass, and my arm and leg was missing. I looked like a shadow of who I was, and I was really pale. And it was the first time it actually hit me that this was my reality now. When this happened, I had a good cry for the first time, and then just kind of moved on. And it was helpful at the time that I had something to do every day. And so even if it was just going to the post office or going to rehabilitation or anything like that, just having like one step forward every day is really what kept me going and kept me confident. Anybody? Okay, so she asked how I got used to using my prosthetic leg. This is actually quite different. So at first, before I had this reconstructive surgery, like the two bones, the tibia and the fibula, will grind together. And it's extremely painful. And like, so when the foot was amputated, they just chopped it off and wrapped the skin around, and that was it. And so walking on it, you're putting weight on the end of your shin bone. If you ever get kicked in the shins, you might know what that feels like. So it took a while, and I kind of made this like Muay Thai boxing. I don't know if you know what that is, where they kick the bamboo poles to numb all the pain in the shins. Well, the more you walk on it, the more the pain goes away, and it's a really tough process. And after I had the reconstructive surgery done on my leg, it made a 90-day difference, and actually started getting stronger. Okay, last question. Okay, so she asked if losing my lip was the worst or best thing that ever happened to me. And I actually told my dad this while I was in the hospital, that I'll never know like what my life would have been like had this not happened to me. I had a really good life in Hawaii before. I had 2 good businesses, a nice house, a really nice motorcycle that got destroyed. You know, I was happy, but I'm also very happy now. Like there was this comedian once that said, like, in economy, just do a really big thing. And so for me, like when I was faced with going back to work and doing something else, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try to do a really big thing and keep going. And so I'm told to wrap this up, and I want to thank you guys for listening to me today. And if I can say anything to you about maybe overcoming adversity and whatnot, and I think there's no way I could have ever done any of this by myself. Like, I was lucky enough to have amazing friends and family. I mean, a lot of the people that donated my GoFundMe were strangers. And it was simply because I kept going, kept trying, that people helped me keep going. And that's why I'm here talking to you guys today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dustin. Thank you very much. Guys and girls, if we walk out of here and we just think it's just a storytelling thing, then we've wasted one of your periods. If you walk out here and you take something out of Dustin's life that makes you determined to make a success, then it's a big, big win for all of us. So I hope it's the latter. Just want to ask Alex to hand something to Dustin as a token of our appreciation for your time. Thank you, young man. And then, well, let me do If you're in a hurry to get your taxi, you can go. If you want to ask Dustin a question, you're welcome to stay. Please have a good one. Thank you very much for your time.